Reaction to Florida State absolutely hammering Kent State. This has been a lot of fun.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Seminoles. I am your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst and writer. Thank you for making Locked On Seminoles a part of your day each and every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. The Noles absolutely were on fire again today. And to be honest with you, the one thing that I questioned several times this week coming into the game, would they be focused with another inferior opponent in front of them? And they answered the bell. If you're a Florida State fan, if you took nothing else away from this football game, the effort, offense, defense, special teams, they applied themselves. They looked ready. That means they prepared properly, and they just went at it. Florida State did not care who the opponent was. They wanted to seek and destroy. All the legendary players and coaches in Florida State history, this is what it looked like when I was growing up. This is what it looked like on that 2013 team. In a lot of ways, this is what it looked like in the 2023 season. Florida State took no prisoners. I'll get into specific players, but just overall, the effort, the mentality, Florida State didn't care that it said Kent State over there. And they're one of the worst teams in Division I football. That's not in negotiation. You could see that pretty quick. Except for that one busted coverage early in the game, Florida State just rolled them. Backups in, walk-ons in, didn't make any difference. Florida State rolled them. So this kind of tells me the most important thing about the rest of the season. Florida State will show up every week, barring something very unforeseen. If you can get up for East Texas A&M and then Kent State, do you think it's going to be hard to get ready when the rest of your games are against opponents that are actually legitimate? No. They've got Virginia. It's a road game on a Friday. Remember, this is next week's a Friday deal. That's a different kind of situation. You better be mentally prepared. That's going to be crazy there. Florida State has the opportunity, though. They set the tone there because I watched the beginning of the Miami game. Florida's terrible. They're going to kill them. I think that game, like, you have game day there and everything. This can be back to Florida State, playing like Florida State in big moments, being the matchup that it should be, Miami at Florida State. Could be two top five teams. College football is better when both of them are really good. So what a day. Let me just give you my general thoughts, and I'll jump into some stats. Then I'll get into the comments. If you got a question, if you want to talk about Micahi Danzy, Tommy Castellanos, if you want to talk about anybody on the defense, the Sear twins, whatever it is you want to talk about. Jerry getting another pick. Obviously, Danzy was the guy that just blew me away. I didn't think he'd run routes that quickly. He's a sharp kid. I'd been around him before, but that guy's got a chance to be a 3-and-out player at Florida State. Like, he's beyond fast. Like, it's comical how fast he is. I think Florida State's got a star there. So Florida State is now in a position where they're rotating guys. Sam Singleton played early. Cam Davis played early. Amari had a nice catch there at the end of the first half. Kevin Sperry does not look like a freshman. The focus on this team is insane. In the depth, even though it's a lot of freshmen and sophomores, like Chroma played well, it is very unique. I don't remember out of all the teams that I've covered UCF, Miami, Florida State, Notre Dame, just anybody you can imagine in some capacity going to cover games randomly in different places. I don't think I've ever seen a turnaround in any sport like what Florida State has done this year. I can't think of one. If somebody has something, drop it in the chat. I'd love to hear it because it's just absolutely crazy. Florida State's ability, again, to turn it on was the key, but let's talk about some stats because it's just fun. It's just fun. Like, Florida State absolutely dropped the hammer. I'm going to share my screen and we can kind of get into this a little bit, but like, good night. It's just everything they did. They had 35 points at the end of the first quarter. They had over 300 yards at the end of the first quarter. So it was really great. Here's the number one stat, though, that I thought was interesting. If you look over at the right on the screen here, look at all the different plays on first downs and everything. I ran across this right before I went live. First down rushing attempts in your average. Florida State averaged 11.6 yards per carry on first down. Holy moly. I mean, you just keep getting first downs. They're hitting 5, 6, 7 yards minimum. And of course, they had some bigger plays. And on top of that, if you want to look at the big plays, this is what Florida State had. And it's pretty comical. The passing game and then the rushing game. For the passes, they had a 47, a 65, a 32, an 18, 16, and a 21. That's a good start. Rushing the football, 40, 11, 10, 12, 10, 64, 17, 16, 12, 15, 18, 11, 26, 24, 37, 22, and 16. I've never seen a sheet that long. Then if you want to look at the individual statistics for the game for the Florida State Seminoles, I'll do defense momentarily. But here are a couple of the stats for the offensive players to start with. Tommy was 10 out of 13. That's obviously tremendous. He had 205 yards. So per attempt, 13. I mean, he was, 15, 16 yards per attempt again. It was incredible. Per completion, he was over 20. And even though he didn't have a touchdown, he had deep balls that went very, very well and got him in position to score. Kevin Sperry was 4 out of 5, including that nice pass to Amari at the end of the first half. Then you jump into the running backs. Holy cow, they have a long list here. This is crazy. Sawchuk, 97 yards. Singleton, 86. 64 yards for Micahi Danzy on one carry. He had a reverse. You have Tommy. He had 7 carries for 54. 2 carries for Jalen Lucas for 44. Chroma, he had 43. You had Zay Parks got in the game and got some good carries again, 34. It's unbelievable. Cam Davis, 30. Everybody contributing, and I want to give a shout out right now. Florida State's offense was better today, really, than it was last week, or the last game, I should say. They were off last week with the bye, because the offensive line was more consistent on the run blocking. You can tell the reps playing together was a big deal. It was a really big deal. And I love that. My question is, how in the world do you get them to go to that truly elite level? And I guess you really don't know until you play a better opponent. You can start to find out against Virginia, but the test is against Miami. Can you make clutch plays on 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5 against really good pass rushers like Akeem Messidor, et cetera? I don't know. We just got to wait and see it. But I was very, very excited about it to begin the overall view of this game, because just running the ball like that, you take the pressure off. And then when you want to throw deep to Danzy, or if you want to throw a check down or anything else you want to do, you're always in a prosperous position. But again, effort. Pass pro was better. Run blocking was way better. And they just dictated the pace. I'm going to take a quick break, and this will be the only break I'm going to do on the show today. And when we come back, I'm going to jump in the chat. We'll get into some of the defensive thoughts, because I think I really want to project that more. The next part's the most important part of the show by a million miles. Effort on defense was good, but it's how they're doing it now. James Williams and some of the other guys, they're really starting to make some plays. That is next on Locked On Seminoles. This episode is brought to you by Mazda's moving the game forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's redefining it. There are moments that do more than just put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward, like Danzy with his incredible performance today. Micahi Danzy had another long touchdown run. He had 2 bombs that he caught. He changes the momentum in the football game. And to be honest, that positive energy, it's what keeps you, the fans, myself, and everybody else covering Florida State. That's what keeps us moving too. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like that, there's more to every highlight. There's more to a Mazda vehicle too. Mazda, move and be moved. And today's show is also brought to you by our friends over at DoorDash. Look, Florida State was killing it today, and it was awesome. I'm going to give Danzy the credit for the player of the game. I just think he set the tone. Tommy and a bunch of other guys could have been that person too. Sawchuk on the long run of the first carry of the game. He was awesome. But I think Danzy changes not only this game, but he changes the outlook on the season for the Florida State Seminoles. So just like Danzy did all the things that he needed to set the tone for the game, you can be that guy too when you order from DoorDash. DoorDash Streaks. Every time you order, it gets you closer up to saving $250 on the year and $100 possibly coming into your pocket with DoorDash credits. Every Saturday, if you order, DoorDash is the place for you. Promo code is good through November 18th. Thank you once again for making Locked On Seminoles a part of your day each and every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. I am Brian Smith, longtime college football writer and recruiting analyst. Thank you for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every day. And if you're not somebody that's an everyday, become one. We talk Florida State football year-round and all the things going on, recruiting, post-game shows, previews, stats, you name it. All my takes here on Locked On Seminoles. I'm going to dive into the chat a little bit and just have some fun with it. And I want to talk defense as I do this. Like, look, Sam Gibson says, "Go Noles." What's up, man? How you doing? This was a fun game defensively to talk about. And Rhino says, "Virginia looks real." Rhinos, give me some stats, man. I did not see any of that game. I haven't talked about them. I didn't even look to see who they were playing today. But I'm really curious about the defense now because they're feeding off the offense. When they score, and sometimes they score quick, that can be detrimental. It's one of the downsides to Gus's offense, and his offense is tremendous. But they'll score in a minute and 20 seconds, and it's like, no big deal. You got to go back out there. The Desir twins, Jason Jenkins, Big Darrell. Obviously, Williams played a little better today, I thought. And they just have a bevy of players. McCray and a bunch of guys up front. And then some of those linebackers, how they bring them up, play that jack position. I really like that too. Florida State did a nice job with it. And I believe that the Noles did everything they could to just put pressure on them. And of course, again, they had the one bust, but to put pressure on them. And I think for the most part, over and over again, Kent State blinked. They didn't want the physicality that the Noles had. They didn't want any part of it. None. And they dropped the hammer on them over and over. They did not relent. They brought it just as much as the offense did. And I know defense doesn't score per se. Jerry was totally involved in that game even later. I looked up, I was writing down something, and I looked up, and he was diving for the ball, picking off a pass. My timing was good to look up at the screen. Every one of these guys just wants it so much. So with that in mind, I'm going to share my screen again here in just a minute. I want to go through a few of these questions, but I want to show the defensive stats because they deserve it. The defensive players absolutely deserve it. Kenneth Clark. Let's go Noles and get the Noles. I'm not sure what that means, but Micahi Danzy is dangerous. Dude, he's more than dangerous. That's from Rhinos. I think he's more than dangerous because he's a guy that changes how your safety lines up. You want to drop a safety in the box? That's cool. So you got a single high, and he's to the wide side of the field, close to the sideline. Are you really going to beat him to the point down the sideline on a bomb? No. Florida State is going to keep a lot of teams in too high now. Gus has a toy that he's never had before. Like he's had some pretty fast guys. He had Schwartz when he was at Auburn. He was as fast, if not even faster in short distance, but he wasn't the biggest guy. Danzy's 6'1", and he's filling out. Like I've stood next to him. He's a pretty good sized kid. There aren't many guys on planet Earth that run like he does that are over 5'10". And as far as football players, I wouldn't be surprised if he was the fastest guy in the country in anything 50 yards or more. Like deep balls, teams are going to have a problem with him. You have to change your defense or just hope that Tommy Castellanos is off. And to that point, I might as well hit this. He might be the best deep ball thrower in the country. It's 3 games in a row that he's just been on the money on those. I don't care who's out there on the field. I don't care if it's on air. It is not easy to throw the ball down the field with that much accuracy over and over and over again. Congrats to Tommy. Congrats to the entire Florida State offensive staff for giving him the play calls, giving him the wherewithal, all the things that go with Tokars, all those guys coaching. It's not just one person, Gus or Tokars or anybody else. They all have helped, but he's got a glow to him. Like he knows when he lets it go. Like you watch Tommy's follow through, it's very consistent. That's the difference between winning and losing, especially in big games. I do want to address the injury for those of you who didn't see it. Tommy got kind of rolled up on a pass. He threw it, completed or whatever, and somebody was coming around the edge. He limped off, ended up playing some more later after the delay, but he was a guy that didn't really have any problems getting back out there. It was scary at first because you never know when somebody's on your lower extremities. You just don't know. But he looks like he's okay. Garrett, what's up, man? Noles look great. My only negative is we need to figure out punt returns. Maybe McCoy is the guy. I mean, possibly. I don't know. They usually judge that stuff in practice. Jalen's obviously electric. We'll see how that goes. Samuel Gibson. I hope we get a deeper playbook because Miami is for real. Oh, Miami is legit. Miami's top 5 team. They got a moxie to them, and they're the most physical team other than Florida State, maybe in the country. Ohio State, Oregon, and Miami and Florida State. Right now, those would probably I would probably rank Florida State in Miami ahead of Penn State. I don't know. Everybody has their opinion. It's debatable, but Miami is legit. They absolutely are. Miami is the only team on the schedule with a better roster. They're probably deeper. I would agree with that. And right now, if you look at the Canes, I was watching a little bit of the game before I came on here. Miami is consistent in the run game. They just run inside duo and occasionally run some basic trap plays with the guard and tackle point on counter tray, but they just don't miss on third downs. Carson Beck is just on fire. He's completing nearly 80% of his passes. That is legit. Rhinos. UVA at 28-7 in the second quarter against Stanford. By the way, Stanford is horrendous. Their offense has been explosive this season. They've got a graduate student, Chandler Morris. His dad's a coach. He's a kid from the Dallas area. He's played quarterback his whole life. I'm not surprised. Garrett, Cam Davis had his best game. Sawchuck is still by number 1, but this running back room is loaded. I told everybody it was going to be good this year, and I thought it was one of the better ones in the country, but it's grotesque how deep Florida State is at running back. Like, it's grotesque. They were so deep, it's insane. This is what it's supposed to look like at Florida State. So pretty awesome to see that kind of go out there and take place. Jazz Unlimited podcast. I'm just convinced Danzy is going to score a touchdown with each touch. At this point, his speed is insane. The player to me in college football that was the most likely to score anytime he ever touched the ball was Randy Moss. But that's low-hanging fruit because, A, it's Randy Moss, and B, he was playing at Marshall. Didn't always play a great comp. But even when they played against good teams, nobody could stop him. But Danzy has that kind of take your breath away. The air in the stadium is sucked out when he gets the ball. When he gets that ball in that reverse and you see the DN, like at that last second, he puts his foot in the ground and his eyes turn. He's like, uh-oh, because he didn't get enough depth and he was cheating. Or he's coming up field and he doesn't have a good angle on him and he has to cut back, whatever. They don't know how to cover that yet. Now, eventually, Danzy's going to get popped on one of those. But so far, he's been really good. And you're going to start seeing him get some screens and do some other things, short drag routes, anything where he catches the ball in stride, even if it's just a 4-yard route. He is a threat to score. Because the first guy, they always think they have the angle. Do you? Because you can't practice against that. There's only one of those. Where's number 19? And he's in Tallahassee. Yeah, he is a special, special talent. Mike, what is up, brother? Hello to you tonight. I love that this team plays to the Noel standard. Well said. Very well said. Garrett, is Clemson this last season's Florida State? I have close to zero fear when we play that game. They're not near as bad as Florida State was last year, but I do have a question, and I'm open-endedly asking. I'm not trying to pick on Clemson. Why are they not more physical? Syracuse, I'm buddies with the guy that runs the Syracuse pod, Jackson Holger, and he is all into it. He's a grad and all that. He told me their offensive line was concerning going into the season, and I was messaging with Jackson during the game, and he said, dude, we couldn't move UConn last week. They couldn't move UConn off the ball. And then they go down to Clemson and Death Valley and run the ball over and over and over again? Makes no sense. I have no idea what Coach Allen's doing. He was the DC at Penn State last year. They were good. Something's wrong with Dabo's tree of coach. It's not looking good there, brother. They should be 0-4. They're 1-3. Remember, Clemson was down 16-0 at home to Troy. Not a good sign. Rhinos, I don't know. Cam is a good receiver out of the backfield. Yeah, he's always had hands. When I covered Cam from the time he was a freshman in high school at 7-on-7s, he caught the ball like a boundary receiver, even though he was always playing in the slot. He's not a real tall guy. He's always had good hands. Langston Danzy is turning into a beast. He's no longer a gadget player. He's turning into a complete receiver. We need more pass rush, but our defense has been vanilla so far. That is true. Langston brings up a good point. Florida State at some point, especially when they play Miami, this is my biggest concern. Miami's 2 defensive ends are going to play in the NFL, period. Not maybe, not could be. Flat out, they will play in the NFL, like play. Ruben Bain might be a 10-year NFL player. They can drop 7 and rush 4 and get pressure. To me, that's the difference between FSU and Miami. That's the one ingredient that has nothing to do with coaching. It's just God-given ability. And, of course, yeah, they're coached well too. But when you can just rush 4 and bring pressure, that's a concern. So I'll be curious to see how Florida State tries to tame them and keep them honest with the jet motions and the shifts and all the different things. I bet Florida State uses some overload formations and does a lot, maybe even with some overload in terms of your both tackles being on the same side, unbalanced, because they're going to have to find ways to make them feel uncomfortable. They're really good. Mike Merrick, the Noles are on a mission. I agree. Like mentally, it's different. This team seems to be, correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm not saying it's going to end the same in terms of being undefeated during the regular season or anything, but this team seems more focused than even the 23 team. That's kind of hard to believe. Samuel Gibson, I'd like to see Lucas get the ball more. I would too. I wonder if it's who they're playing. Like, he can't take a bunch of hits. That would be my only pushback on that. But when Jalen gets the ball, like, can you imagine trying to tackle that little guy in space one-on-one? Yeah, that wouldn't be much fun. Russell Smith, quarterback 2 looks good, and the backup quarterback play good. Didn't know those walk-on running backs looked that good. Florida State's got guys that are beyond, like, they're 6 deep at running back scholarship. They got walk-ons that can play. It's insanity. It really is. Langston, Miami is better than Penn State, and they're a top 5 team, but they haven't played a physical defense like ours. And I'm definitely not impressed with their secondary. Our receivers will eat against them. I think the big key there is Squirrel healthy. If you could put Danzy and Squirrel on one side and Deuce to the other, you've got a dilemma. Florida State could have a big edge there. Miami has the edge on the D-line. I think they got the better D-line. But if you can throw deep and only hit a couple of plays, even if they get more tackles for loss, if you're hitting 20 and 30-yard plays or more, you can overcome that. It's a good point by Langston, but their secondary, when they played Notre Dame, that was C.J. Carr's first game. Like, he had like 7 passes for 200 and some yards today. If they'd have played him middle of the season, it might have been different. I still don't think their secondary is that great, but it's way better than it was last year. Miami's secondary last year was comical. So Florida State will definitely have a bigger challenge. Michael, watching this team play gives me flashbacks of some of those great 90s Noles teams. To be honest, there's some truth in that. They're not as raucous and not as celebratory and all that stuff. That's a different era. But the way they play physical at the line of scrimmage, with the defense in particular, Florida State was a finesse offensive team for the most part, but they just put you in one-on-ones all the time, and they had better athletes. It was just brilliant how they did it. They killed teams. They assassinated them in the first half, and then guys, whoever the quarterback was that year, Winky, whether it was, it didn't make any difference. They had guys that were coming off the bench, even when they rotated the second quarterback, the third-string receivers, they may have been freshmen, but they were 4- and 5-star recruits, and they slaughtered you. And then that second and third unit in the front 7, oh boy, you didn't get any nights off there. Samuel Gibson, would you agree that our defense is vanilla because they're holding back for tougher teams? 100%. You're not going to show everything. However, we don't get the copy. When you watch TV, you don't get 1/10 of what you need, even against when you're watching a vanilla defense. You have to watch what I call all 22 film or vertical film. And Tony's defense is the biggest pain in the butt to understand up front anyway, because the safeties move after the snap so much. It's annoying. And that's why he does it. So I really don't know what all they're doing, but a few of the looks were wide enough. I could see they were playing some cover 4, like just basic stuff like that, cover 2. And, they might have shifted right before, right after the snap, but they gave generic looks because they didn't think, and they're right, that Kent State could do anything. They're right. They couldn't do anything. With that in mind, matter of fact, I'll share my screen for a second here real quick. Let me pull out of that. I'm going to show the defensive statistics for the Noles. Might as well give them some props. I thought they did good. I thought the defense played pretty darn well, to be really honest with you. And I think they deserve a little shine, if you will. Defensively, who would we pick as today's quote-unquote best player? For those of you watching on YouTube, it's the stats on the right. This is how balanced it is again. The leading tackler again, 4 tackles. Daryl Jackson, Earl Little, and James Williams all had 4. Cottrell again, the walk-on linebacker. He's a pretty good little player. He had 3 tackles. Daryl Desir again, 3 tackles. Omar Graham, he had a big hit on one of the plays. He's got 3. Then you got about half dozen guys that have 2. Cryer, Herring, Hebert, Quindarius Jones. He got some PT. Edwin Joseph, Kirkland. I mean, they just had a ton of guys. The only thing, and part of it's their offense, let's see, they only had 6 tackles for loss and 2 sacks combined. They knew they couldn't block Florida State. So what did they do? They got the ball out quicker. They ran it. Quarterback moved around, did a good job of avoiding some stuff, but they knew they couldn't block the Noles. And that's fine. But I think this team will get more and more tackles and more big plays as they get into a scenario where they're going against teams that they think they can at least come close to blocking for us. You'll see more dropbacks, etc. They're getting teams off the field like in 3 to 5 plays, so you're not going to get as many tackles for loss. Let's see here. Matter Daddy, the ACC broadcast is terrible. They said Deuce Robinson's dad was a fullback? What? He played wide receiver at Florida State. I have no idea what they're talking about there. Michael, Battle is going to be insane next year. Let's see. Jerry. Samuel Gibson. I like that Mike's still coaching on the sidelines and players came off. Yeah, he doesn't take anything off. You can tell Norvell really enjoys it. That's one thing about it. He really enjoys ball. No doubt. The quarterback battle is going to be intense next year. I actually don't think it is. I think it's going to be Kevin Sperry, and I don't think it'll be close. I really don't. He's already passed the guy, and he's only had spring and this fall. I don't think it's going to be that close. Broward Knoll. They said Tony White had the defense playing like eye candy, so UCLA don't look this way. UCLA is going to offer him the job, in my opinion, because I don't think anybody wants it. It's just going to be a matter if he wants to take that job. Paul G. Road weekday conference night games worry me. I realize we should beat Virginia, but the game has me a little nervous. Am I wrong? No. Virginia can score. They're going to give you some problems. They're going to give you some looks to try to confuse Florida State on the back end, and we'll get into that. That's a great point. But Florida State's offense is not going to have problems with Virginia. Here's why. They don't have the players in the trenches. They don't. Not trying to be mean, but recruiting is my bag. When was the last time they got a 4 or 5 star defensive lineman that an FSU or a Penn State wanted? When? They just don't get enough of those kids. And you can get some under the radar guys. The Desir twins were under recruited. Okay. But that you're not going to rotate 8 guys like that. Play Florida State. Russell Smith. I'm sitting here thinking our third stringers look better than last year's first team. You're probably not wrong. More heart and soul on both sides of the ball. Physically better. I don't know what it is, but I couldn't disagree with that in any way, shape, or form. Russell, that is a great statement. For some reason, Florida State is on a completely different level in terms of what they're doing, and I don't know why. Like the effort and everything, they just bought in. Whatever it is that Florida State's coaches are doing, bottle it and sell it. Jerry is my defensive MVP. That guy's just a stud, man. Jerry's going to play on Sundays. When you've got a corner that can take the ball away, changes things, brother. It really does. Kenneth Clark, any updates on Thomas Castellanos after the game? He played after he got hurt, so I assume he's fine. Yeah, let's see here. Sperry is the next quarterback up from Samuel Gibson. I 100% agree. I 100% agree. I'm going to make a few more comments here and wrap it up. I'll have a more overview kind of deal on Sunday. Later in the day, I need to go back through the film and all that stuff and watch it to get a better view. I want to check the O-line and D-line in particular, but a couple last bit things. Besides the effort and everything else, the physicality. By the way, thanks to everybody in the chat. You guys were on point today. Some great statements and questions. Florida State has more depth than I thought. Way more depth. Like, they did a good job of hiding things. They completely snookered me with how they acted with the media in fall camp. I can tell you that. They caught me off guard. And secondarily, this team's just on a mission. I don't know how far they're going to go. I don't know if they can win a national title. But, I mean, would anybody, like even if, let's say they lose one game and they don't make the ACC title game, let's say Miami beats them or whatever in a close game, as long as they don't get blown out, and that ain't going to happen. I think even if they don't make the ACC title game, if they go 11-1, they're going to get in. They might make noise and make it to the Final Four. This team, it is, again, maybe the greatest turnaround in college football history. Let me say that again. This season's Florida State team, Florida State is the greatest turnaround I've ever seen in college football from one year to the next. The greatest one. I can't think of anything like this. Effort, physicality, execution, depth, offense, defense, special teams. Florida State's the greatest turnaround I can ever remember seeing. And it's a lot of fun to cover. I really like this. It's just crazy, man. It's just crazy. So, Matter Daddy, hey, no problem, man. My appreciation to you for stopping in and making this a fun chat. Samuel Gibson, I'm watching the Miami-Florida game. Either Miami has a really good team or Florida is that bad. 10-0 Miami is driving. Yep. Florida didn't look like they had any energy. When I started watching the game right before this show, they looked bad. Kenneth Clark, what is the total of points in the Virginia game so far? I don't have that up. If somebody wants to comment, feel free. I don't think there is a dominant team this season. I mean, Oregon's looked the best to me, but they haven't played the greatest schedule. I mean, Oregon plays at Penn State next week. We'll find out how good they are. Langston, the reason I think we beat Miami is because our defense is better. I think Virginia will be solid test, closer than you think, but we will beat the Canes. I'm betting at least 100 on that game. Michael, love the post-game show. Just subscribe and see you next week. Go Noles. Yeah, it'll be a Friday show next week. Again, just a reminder, they play a night game. It'll be closer to midnight. It is what it is, but it's a Friday night game. I assume it's ESPN or ESPN2, whatever, and we'll get into it. But thank you to everybody for making this another fantastic show. This was actually a lot of fun, and it's fun winning 66-10 or whatever it was. I mean, Florida State just beat the bejesus out of them, and I mean, can't go wrong with games like this. I forget what I picked Florida State to win, 63-10 or something. I almost picked the score, but this was a lot of fun. So if you have not already, please become an everydayer. Walk in with Locked On Seminoles. Subscribe. Check us out every day. I'm posting 7 days a week, most of the time, 2 shows a day. There is plenty of content, recruiting, updates, injuries, my takes, what's going on in the ACC, all the polls, everything you could imagine right here in Locked On Seminoles. We will see you again on Sunday.